What's going on, my creative collective? Good morning. This is your Saturday morning collective and creative unconscious reading, diving into some different shadow topics and just things that are in service to our highest healing. So, some of the themes that came up for me for this particular reading were related to communication and the ways that life speaks to us, the ways that we receive that, the ways that we integrate it, and just the ways that we stay open to that. So I went on a hike yesterday. It was a 7 kilometer hike, which is long, but not that long. If it was a 7K run, that would be a different story. But this was, it was not that long a hike, but it was just beautiful. So in the southern Ontario where I am, one of the conservation areas around is called the Elora Gorge. Sorry, I'm fiddling with my watch here. It's a little tight, but not tight. There we go. Um, and the Elora Gorge, I hadn't been there in quite some time. Some people might be like, why are you telling people this? It's fine. It's beautiful there, and I encourage people to go. There's a place, so from an urban planning perspective, and planning perspective in general, it's called the Greenbelt in Ontario, and there's a ton of conservation areas and trails. There's just a ton of different things along there, and it's so powerful to me, just the space and being able to reconnect with nature there. And having access to that, it just is incredible. So I hadn't gone to the Elora Gorge for a while, and while on the way there, a red-tailed hawk swooped down and was literally gliding beside my car doing 80 kilometers an hour. And that was the speed limit, by the way. So it's, no, I'm, there are times where there's like a 10 over rule, but no, yesterday was good. So the hawk had been gliding. It glided beside my car for a while, and then it just swooped up and then swooped down. And obviously, it found some food in a field beside me as I was driving. But that's just really one of the beautiful parts of this area, is just how much wildlife is there. And I find that animals find us anyway to communicate things to us. So at least that happens to me. But it was just this communicative energy yesterday, and I sat beside the river. It was pretty much roaring in the Elora Gorge at this one part where you could tell there was a sharp drop and different pools because rocks and boulders had built up. And so it was so loud, but it was just such a calming kind of roar. And it was interesting because in the presence of this raw energy of nature itself, humans couldn't really communicate. So there was a couple that brought a canoe and they were portaging along the rocks to go back down to the more peaceful part of it. It was about maybe 10 feet away. So it was just like 10 to 20 feet. My measurements are off. But they all that we could do was nod and wave, right? So it's these little gestures, and we had to. It's like relying so much more on energy in the presence of this raw power that we all have within us. And I see it as being within us. There was some channeled messages that came through while I was writing about other things there. So I'm hoping to put that up on here tomorrow. I'm crossing my fingers. If not tomorrow, then at some point this week with the footage that I took while there. So. But this healing communication was really loud. Healing communication and healed communication, and just a gentleness and remembering the humanity in one another, and that being a raw power, that being one of our powers here, and not power to wield, not power in the Plutonic sense. Power doesn't make me nervous in other people. Like, I've had friends run for office and get in. And I've been around enough of it to know that through volunteering and whatever, that it's not the power itself, it's the ignorance of the plutonic nature of power at times, if it's coming from an unhealed place within us, that becomes something else in the world. So that to me is how I see that. Power doesn't scare me. Right? Like, it's just, we all have it to different degrees and whatnot. But that was the big message coming through is healing communication, and also just being gentle with ourselves in understanding our own raw materials. Right. So I've been chatting at you for a hot minute. So I'm going to dive into the reading portion, but I wanted to share those messages ahead of time. So I would like to invite the angels, my guardian angels, my spirit guides, protectors, teachers, and their healing energy to this space. And I ask that it is a safe and brave space that allows for the fullest expression of our light, humanity, ascension, and healing. Okay, so I'm going to start with my usual here. Sorry for shaking the camera a little bit. There we go. I had to touch the cord. So All right, Spirit, what messages do you have for this creative unconscious reading? And the message to yesterday coming through a fair bit was about our own raw materials, and how that can be the stuff of communication, and just, thinking about what it is and how we take root. What it is and how we take root. I posted some pictures and video on my Instagram page. I take video of spaces like that just to offer up. Together? Okay. To offer up, sensory experiences for folks. And I tried to make about 15 to 20, sometimes 30-second recordings of really soothing and healing spaces, just to offer that up for folks who aren't able to get to them. So feel free to take a peek and, enjoy. I do it in service to healing, so, right? Spirit, what messages do you have for my creative unconscious collective for Saturday, May 14th, please? The Queen of Cups. Yeah, I'm getting this as like raw emotion, like our raw materials. Our raw materials. I'm hearing metallurgy. 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 I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but... And that's the Eight of Pentacles. And the Knight of Cups. And the Queen of Pentacles was on the bottom. A lot of earth energy. You know what? I'm going to take that. A lot of earth energy here. I'm going to put this deck back. And I'm clarifying with the Elemental Power Oracle, of course. I've worked with this for a while. One of the beautiful things about this is that it's a tarot deck, but it takes all of the human elements out of it. So it's literally just the elements as sort of the star of the show, right? So the Fool, this card, and the Moon, for an example, right? So it's a beautiful deck, and I want to use that because the elements communicate so much through imagery and just an intuitive knowing. So we're going to use that one today to clarify. But at the outset here, there's a Six of Swords and a Two of Wands. There's something about perspective that was breaking, but not breaking in a way, like there's this slow breakdown. I think about, so here's what's coming to mind. This is kind of like the Death card, and I don't know why I'm reading it off of this, but there were so many logs when I went hiking yesterday, and logs are just this beautiful decomposition. Like if I think of the Death card and I think of Scorpionic energy, that to me is like a log that gives life to so many other things. There's a book called Finding the Mother Tree, and it is really, it highlights this significantly. Where you can have a log decomposing and the log doesn't, it still supports a whole ecosystem through the roots that remain in it, and it still communicates so many different things, and it sustains so much life. And I feel like there's something that is, that you're beginning to see there's a release here, but the release is the perspective of something as being more rotting than fertile, if this makes sense to you. There's something that you're, I want to say cutting out, but it's not so much a cutting out as much as it is a perspective shift. Yeah, it's like a transformative perspective that allows something to become nourishing more and to support a whole ecosystem, a world that is growing within you more than a world that is sharp, more than a world that is razor sharp, like that kind of the difference in it. Logs are soft, and if you stand on one that is in a state of decomposing and providing much nutrients to the systems and the undergrowth around it, it will crunch because it's such a soft wood, right? It's almost like if you get really close and just look, I go for hikes and I'm the one that's like this far away from the log. Like I'm looking at it and just like touching it and really listening to what it has to say. And I get that this is like, there's some way that this has made a bit of softness where there was perhaps something razor sharp. Not that it ever cut necessarily, but I just see this beautiful breakdown, like the lessons that you learned from something are giving something back. It's giving something back. um, and giving something back in a way that is just part of the natural flow of things and this sort of ordering of things that you didn't realize was there. And then the Two of Wands to me says that this is really, it's allowing you to take a different perspective, and it's allowing you to, I want to say what came to mind was future cast, but in a way it's sort of like contemplating and looking beyond what you know, right? Looking beyond what you know. If you lifted up a log, I don't recommend doing this because it's kind of traumatizing to the ecosystem and any animals in it. Just don't do it. But if you were to lift it up, you could see all of these mycelial cords that connect underground and that connect that one specific spot in the woods to hundreds of miles away. Like it's just this underground network, and it's almost like they've done studies and things that talk about a book that you want, if you want to read about this, is called Entangled Life. There are others, but that's the one that talks about fungi and mycelial networks and things. And I feel like there's a way that you're connecting to this sort of cosmic mycelial network within you. If you're a Star Trek nerd, it's sort of like the mycelial network in like Star Trek Discovery or whatever it is. The guy from Rent is in it. 11:11 on the time. I don't fancy myself a particular Trekkie, but it was interesting to see that in a show about future technology. But I feel like this is sort of a technology and way that you're starting to be able to see further, is that you're communicating with these future parts of yourself, and you don't need to know all the details, but it's almost like this electrical signal that's coming back. And that's really what happens through mycelial networks, is pulses get sent out that communicate information about water contents, pests, soil quality, distressing events around, right? That kind of thing. So it's a very sophisticated system that we don't really understand yet, which is amazing to me because we want to go into the space, but there's so much about this planet that we don't yet know and that we can only sit in wonder at, right? So it's just interesting because there's a whole cosmos beneath our feet. But I'm getting that this perspective shift is like unleashing, like it's almost like you're releasing the idea of emotions being some kind of force. Like it's like letting the monster out of the closet, or like turning the light on and realizing that the monster that you thought was under the bed really isn't. So it's like connecting you with this emotionality and this deep emotion, which is, it's like a nurturing act of self, but this is like a raw emotion that you're then putting into some kind of work. You're putting into some kind of work, or that is allowing you to, it's manifesting in a way of working. Like there's some kind of, I just heard stewardship, like a craft of some kind. And it's like your soul's purpose. Like there's an expertise here with your emotions. And also understanding the raw materials that happen, the raw materials of your heart and also your mind, right? What are these raw materials to you? I don't know. Sometimes, for me, raw material could be for creativity. It's going to the places, the liminal spaces in between, and pulling back and observing and seeing the different ways that time has worked, and separation and connection and all of those things. And then finding the story of it and then bringing that back to where I am in the present moment. And that's kind of a creative process of sorts. But I think this Eight of Pentacles is like I feel like it's a process like that, but there's possibly also dedicated attention, right? And it's like there's like a methodological approach that you're able to take because you understand how to use these materials. This is like almost alchemy, I'm hearing. Like you're understanding how to use these raw materials that are within you. And that's really allowing your work to take on a new form. And it's I'm getting this to be both grounded and heartfelt. But I think that the beauty of the raw material here in your soul and channeling that into something is seeing what cups are worth hanging on to and which ones aren't, right? Like I almost get the image 1414 was on the time there. If it's like the image of you're so satisfied. This just came to mind. Because I'm hopefully going to go see my granny in not this weekend, but next weekend for the holiday weekend in Canada here in Ontario. And I was thinking about her with the Blue Jays because she loves baseball so much. Like she's like, you can tell me what you need to tell me after. Don't call me during the game. So But this idea of, there was a player, Jose Bautista, who when the Jays made the playoffs, he threw the bat, and then they made all these memes because it was considered in poor taste for him to throw the bat, because he was so excited because he got a home run that was very crucial for them in the game. Baseball is not my thing at all, but it really, it reminds me of that, right? Like there's some kind of celebratory, heartfelt coming forward, whether that's you or someone else. This could also just be the awareness of these raw materials in you. The cups present here tell me that it might have something to do with emotions. And the Queen of Serpents is here reminding me that there's an element of, there's like a cool fire to your emotions right now. There's a cool fire to them. Much like being in water on a hot day, right? There's a cool fire. There's a heat from the sun, but there's also this cool water. And I feel like this is grounded. I feel like whatever it is related to these raw materials within you, there's a groundedness to it. There's a groundedness to it. I'm hearing the song that your crown chakra sings. I looked at the top of the Queen of Pentacles head, and I saw what looked to be a harp. I don't believe it's that. I believe it's more so of a crown, but yeah. Very true. Yeah, grounded emotions. And I think this is like a leveling out of the things that you like. You're recognizing not just what the emotions are, what the raw materials are, but you're really seeing the way that I'm hearing cause and effect, domino effect, like that electrical signal being sent out through this sort of unseen energetic network. And I mean, I know there are times where I pick up on things and I feel things and I'm like, I have no idea where this is coming from. And I genuinely don't. And I feel like that's part of the intuitive process and trying to understand how it all works, right? Like you can be open to things, which is true. I'm just seeing a butterfly here. But it's like you can see things and be open to that energy, but you don't always know what it is and what it means. And then that's the reason why you ground, because it's not always for you to know right away. It's for you to be a humble messenger and communicator of it here, right? That's the whole point. So I'm going to pull from this elemental power deck here to clarify. And I should also say that Ouroboros is in this Eight of Pentacles. Actually 10 of Pentacles. Interesting. I saw it as 8 because of the work component, but it's 10. I just saw the X, the Roman numeral. And the Ouroboros on here is sort of the regenerative thing. I was thinking, oh my gosh, okay, thank you so much, Spirit. I missed a piece. But so this is the 10 of Pentacles, which is really, that's like the ultimate investment and growth. And that this would be 100-year-old cedar tree. This would be an ancient cedar tree. We do have those in Ontario, Southern Ontario. There's a few. One of them is Rattlesnake Point. Incidentally, we do not have rattlesnakes at that point, but they hang off the cliff face there. So, but it's like this ancient cedar idea, right? The ancient cedar and this regenerative Ouroboros. I get the image of this regenerative death, like that log, right, that gives back to the forest that we see and we may think is decomposing. And for all, scientific processes, it is, but there's so much life that it's sustaining that it's almost like it's like at the veil between both sides, and it's existing in this liminal space that defies really what we would think about passing on and continuing to survive. And then it does gradually decompose, but the root system often stays intact for longer than the surface breakdown might indicate. So that's something else maybe to consider. So yeah, there's this 10 of Pentacles though. It certainly contextualizes the sort of totality and the legacy and that enduring connection. This could mean something that you're deeply committed to, or will be deeply committed to coming forth. In terms of the raw materials, though, I feel like you're beginning to see not just the methodological process of it, but you're beginning to see that's the sense of completion with it. There's like a way that you're beginning to work with it that allows you to be connected in a deeper and more enduring way. What am I trying to say here? Spirit, can you clarify that for me? Bigger than yourself. when you stand in the woods and you just listen with your whole body, you just listen with your whole body. I try to put my non-dominant hand on a tree, but first I ask if it wants to be touched, which some people might be like, okay, but it's just a process that I have because trees are sentient beings, whether people would like to think that or not. Same thing with rocks and roots and ground and leaves, all of it. And then it's just listening. So putting my hand on the tree and just listening to the energy of what it has to tell me. And it's just, you can feel not just the depth and breadth of the roots, but that whole network underneath, underground, underfoot that we can't see, right? That we can't see. So it's like this, you're stepping into this, and maybe through a regenerative portal. Could be the full moon happening on the 16th or thereabouts. And I feel like there's a way that you're stepping into this sense of wholeness. But again, something bigger than you. And it's such a beautiful thing to respect that, right? Some people find that scary, but I find that so comforting to know. So comforting to know that you can be embraced by something whose arms stretch wider than yours, whose wisdom is deeper and more enduring, and that you don't have to know everything. And to be in this beautiful incompletion, knowing that the steps that you take to healing right now, they are profound and helpful, but there's so much more, and there will always be so much more. And there's a timelessness to it that stretches in so many different directions. So, and I'm hearing circle of responsibility. Okay, so I was looking at this earlier, thinking about tomorrow's offering, and just after listening to Sleeping at Last has both a space album, and it's like it has instrumental music on it, and I was listening to that, and this came up a lot, so I took it off my little board here. But it's almost like part of healing communication is understanding what is and is not our responsibility. Now I have this up because as an empath, sometimes I get caught up in wanting to help others and needing to understand the boundaried view. And I'm a visual person as well. So this just helps for me to have around, but it's sort of this circle of responsibility, right? Remembering what is your responsibility and concretizing it every now and again to remember the specifics, like what is not your job, what is not your responsibility, what is, and yes, that's part of boundaries, but I think that this is also just, I think having the visual reminders is very powerful. And I think too that nature doesn't take responsibility for processes that is not inherent to it. The cedar tree does not take on the, responsibilities of the jobs of the rocks and the cliffs holding up their roots, right? There's a certain shared responsibility where it meets. And I think that's part of the 10 of Pentacles here. This reading is so intense. Oh my gosh, there's so much here. Spirit always speaks to me through nature so powerfully. So it's just, I'll disappear into the woods for a couple of hours and come back fully rejuvenated. Honestly, it's just so good. Okay, so we have the Queen of Swords. I'm seeing a bit of an Ace of Cups behind the crown, though. It's not in there, but I see an Ace of Cups behind the crown. Three of Wands. I'm hearing like a foghorn. Ten of Swords. So the Queen of Swords is showing up here in terms of a lack of clarity. A lack of clarity. The Ace of Cups behind it was like, the way I was looking and thinking about it was when I was driving yesterday, there was miles of farm field and or farmers' fields or crops and what have you. And you would see the road emerge and there was farming equipment that I got stuck behind, which is like, it was a beautiful day. So going 40 doesn't matter. Like, it's fine. And it's also just safer. Like, don't try and outrun a combine. You will lose. Like, it's fine. But or don't try and race a combine. I don't know. but it's almost like you're going through the horizon, and then just beyond the crown there's an Ace of Cups behind, but you can't see it. You can't see it. And I'm hearing turquoise. So that could be something that's important for you right now in terms of a stone or a color to tap into and use and be one with. Yeah, I feel like this is where the churning waters came in from yesterday. Like there's something that, a lack of clarity of the depths. Like we can't see the depths, but I think it's important to hold the bigger picture perspective, because that's what's also going to help you with this Two of Wands future planning and letting go of the perspective of something. This like the decomposing log here in this swords, in the Six of Swords. Yeah. And perspective in the decomposing log just meaning like the perspectives that we think aren't really serving a purpose and that we think are dying, allow them to be the fuel for what's new, right? Let it be, even make it ceremonious so that there is a letting go that is marked by time and that is marked by the patterns. I'm hearing wave patterns of your heart space too, right? We have to honor these comings and goings. There was another reader that said that the other day, something along those lines. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's like really important. And how often do we mark entries into things, but we don't really we don't really give the same honor to the letting go of things, right? We don't really do that. And that's where I get this with the log. Like, to me, it's like rebirth. What people see as down trees is really something beautiful to me, not ones that have been cut down by humans with no reason other than development and whatnot, but you get what I'm saying. And I feel like it's helping. This perspective shift is not only clarifying an Ace of Cups, but it's also helping you to stand in a more positive, expectant place. And it's also opening up opportunities. And this is like trusting in the background actions as well, right? Trusting in the background actions. Trusting in the background. I'm seeing a daddy long legs spider. Whatever that means to folks. I'm not a huge fan of spiders, but if they don't really bite or anything, I've let them crawl on my finger and just explore a little bit before I put them back on the ground. When they're in the house, that's another story. No, I'm kidding. It's freaky when they're in the house to me. But they serve such an interesting purpose in nature, though. But it's this, I feel like this, I'm hearing the power of positive expectation. I think that you're just starting to think beyond limitations with regards to this particular perspective. And I think that the swords are here because thought process is also communication. So something had to be done. Something had to be done. And I get that this was like a way of approaching conflict. Because I'm just seeing the ways where it's like, we have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn all in here. And I feel like these approaches to conflict, you're really starting to branch away from and to carve your own path. I'm hearing to carve your own path because you see you see the interconnectedness of everything. So there's a way that you're, I'm hearing pulling back, but it's not pulling back necessarily. It's about respecting the energy and understanding that even when you think negatively, it has an impact on the entire ecosystem. So it's not controlling your emotions to the point of, like smashing them into something. Like you're not mortar and pestling them into something. Like it's not like that. It's honoring them where they are without letting them spill out as an electrical signal that then affects the rest of the field, if that makes sense. This is really abstract, but we're rolling with it. Ace of Wands, there's the new. This is the new. This is, I think, you could think of it as an Ace of Cups, but I feel like this is sort of a reconnection to your instincts, your creative instincts, I'm hearing your heart's instincts. There's something about this here where you had to work with your mind. You had to work with your mind a little bit, and perhaps some of the throat chakra, and really start to heal that some as well. And there are ways that healing is always taking place, right? Like I've seen some teachers say that you have to be fully healed in order, but the thing is that we're always healing, right? It's like I'm hearing Shrek. It's like onions and layers, right? It's never done. So if we limit ourselves to that, then we would really, what would we do with our lives, right? So I think it's about being conscious of where you are with your healing. Yes. And I ran into this recently with my transness, and like the thought of dating people and the thought of people getting to know me, like it freaked me out a little bit, because I thought, ooh, there's like the reality of my transness. Are people okay with that? Could they be okay with that? And it just took, a walk yesterday and talking to the trees as I went along, and just understanding that and sitting in that energy to move through it. But it's like this conscious healing process, right? This conscious healing process where we let emotions flow through us, right? Even when they churn and even when they roar, let them do that, because a couple feet downstream, there's so much more peace, right? So, yeah. So, Spirit, can you tell me about these raw materials and the Queen of Cups, please? Knight of Swords. I feel like this is where the power starts to come in for you. This is where the power starts to come in for you. Something about this, like, so the Knight here, so the fire is here because it's considered the fire of air. So the Knight of Swords in this particular iteration to me is about your forward movement. This is like momentum, propulsion. This is the engine starting. I feel like this is where the Ace of Wands meets Mars, I'm hearing. So the action meets action, right? And I was thinking about it yesterday, laughing a little bit, thinking that if you're looking for like Mars personified in its shadow, it might sound a little bit like David Goggins. But so there's this need to have this balanced approach where you have the Queen of Cups, but you also have the Knight of Wands and Knight of Swords in what you're doing, and that fire air element, right? The combination of them. Justice. I am hearing decisions. Oh, interesting. This is, I heard, what are we going to let take root? Heart or mind? And we don't have to, we can do both and, right? We live in a world of nuance and the both and. And nowhere is that truer than in nature, where cedar trees will grow through fences that we don't understand how a tree can grow this wide around, but start through a hole in a fence like this, right? It just defies logic. Something about it defies logic. But that's the sweet spot. That's the sweet spot. And I'm seeing in this tree here both an ear. I don't know if you can see that. It's a little blurry. Let me try it. There's an ear in the tree. But what I also saw was the knots in the tree, and how that's what helps us to have such a stable foundation, is making peace with the nuance. So I think that part of this raw material is understanding that you won't understand all of it, that it's not meant to be understood, that the world is meant to be felt first, to heal, but then also just that perspective of pulling back. And I think this is like a rational view of something. This is like, also it's like integrity in your decision making. Libra is also this is also the Libran card, and that's the ruler of the 7th house with Venus. So I'm almost getting that you're laying a groundwork and foundation for, let me fix that there. Yeah. Groundwork and foundation for the way that you're going to be handling situations and yourself creatively and in relationships going forward. The Devil and the Knight of Wands. Yeah, 2 knights. So this is the Devil here in this particular deck. There's something that you haven't been able to see. There's like a healing that you've needed, maybe. Something's grown over what's important to you. I get this as almost an overgrowth, and what's meaningful is at the heart of it. And meaningful just meaning pentacles. This is really a commentary on our times, and a brilliant one at that in a tarot deck. But what I'm getting with the devil card here is that there's something that the reward is beneath the work, and the work may be either seeing through the brush. I don't like the idea of mowing this down because it is sustaining an ecosystem. So what I'm seeing in this is there's a sense of what's most meaningful to you being at the heart of something. And it's not that it's hidden from you. I think it just takes some work and dedication to get to. And I'm hearing lavender. It doesn't, I mean, it could be thyme as well, but I think it's more lavender that I'm seeing on this. And then that could be important in terms of essential oils or aromatherapy if that's what you do. And Knight of Wands is more forward momentum. I'm hearing organizing your energies. So it's like you're organizing your energies so that you can move forward on specific things. And this is like taking on the world now. Like this is you able to take calculated risks and thinking about what's best, but also considering what you need for the long haul, right? The energy that you need for the long haul. So the 10 of Pentacles here, Spirit, can you please clarify that for me for my wonderful creative collective? Please and thank you. Six of Wands. I'm seeing a dance floor. I don't really do clubs. Or anything like that. Like I'm not, that energy tends to leave me drained a fair bit. But I do see there's some kind of celebration. Like there's some way that there's a spotlighted energy here. Spotlight. The way I'm seeing it is where your consciousness and awareness goes when a ray of light shines through the woods and focuses on a specific part of it. And then how you usually see growth, because you can tell that that's where the sun shines on such a regular basis, that in spring at least, you see specific markers of growth, like moss or trout lilies or, ferns or plants that are part of that make up the undergrowth. And it's interesting because the shaded areas will have nothing like it. So you can tell usually where the patches of sun hit throughout the day, and it sort of tells the story of the light. So it's almost like that's sort of a metaphorical, maybe what's happening within you, right? And just understanding where the shadows are, not to malign them, but just to tend to those places if you want something to grow there. Tend to the shadows, yes, but then once you're done with them, just leave the rest. Strength. I feel like this is a confidence. This is also, I think, a sign of deep comfort with where you are. Cats usually show their bellies to people that they trust and that they appreciate. Yeah. There's something about making peace with where you are. And it's just this tender strength, this soft power, right? This is sort of an integrated energy to me of the masculine and feminine within you. Spirit, what other messages do you have for my creative unconscious, please? Four of Swords. Four of Wands. I think that you're healing your ideas of what commitment means as well, in terms of being committed to ideas, people, places. Like there's an anchoring that I'm seeing here. Like you had to uproot your ideas of how and where roots grew so that you could then continue to move forward on them and with them. So there's something important, the value, the pentacle here. This is like a tangible importance, and you're beginning to see what's most important, but also this, I think it's like a quiet healing process that's taken place that your guides are cheering on here. It's like a regenerative thing. I feel like it happened very unassumingly. Four of Pentacles. So we have the Four of Pentacles, the Page of Pentacles, and the Six of Pentacles. Yeah. Knowing what to hold on to and what to release. And also understanding that certain things will need to, they will grab your attention more than others, right? The differences in shapes and locations of the pentacles. Certain things will require more attention, energy, and effort. And so it's not about withdrawing and withholding effort from things, but it's about knowing what bears the most important elements of giving and balance so that you can offer the most of yourself and that you can also receive the most that others want to give to you. So that's really, that I think that's the more profound healing that's taking place here. Now, in terms of communication, I think that what this is about, it's not just active listening. Communication isn't just active listening, right? It's also, on the one hand, it's a component of that. It's a component of active listening. A great book to read is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Marshall Rosenberg. You can probably hear my neighbor mowing the lawn. Sorry. But Nonviolent Communication is an excellent book to look into for a framework to use through which to communicate, so that we're communicating about specific ways that we can get needs met and sharing our feelings as opposed to sharing judgments and getting the two confused so that we can't really hear or understand the people that are really important to us. So it's a fantastic thing. There's frameworks. You can Google it. And if you look up, I have it up here. It is how you can use the NVC process. I have that on a board, on my whiteboard over in the corner. So it's a fantastic tool. So Spirit, can you continue to clarify this for me, please, for my creative unconscious for Saturday, May 14th, please. So I'm seeing the Five of Swords on the Knight of Cups and the Queen of Pentacles. I think this is a competitive environment, and I think that this is a call to take in the lessons of loss, but to understand that it's not loss. This could be the perspective shift we went through here. This is like seeing yourself as a bit of like it's like a new approach to conflict resolution. And this could be where the communication piece comes in, where we hold back on throwing our emotions around or away or tossing them or doing anything immediately with them. The Ace of Wands is, in addition to gut instinct, it's also impulse, right? A lot of fire energy here, very impulse. So it's almost like we're grounding this impulse and we're seeing, because I feel like this is related to that throat chakra, Five of Swords. It's to do with not just your voice, but also your sight as well. So it's like you're seeing this new way of approaching conflict and solving problems, not because there's like it comes down to it's not about, whoa, so many thoughts coming through. It's not about being right or happy. That's also a binary. It's about how heard do people feel, and how do I want to be a conduit for people feeling heard? What do I need and what do others need? And how is there a middle ground or a ground in general where we can bring these things out and forward, and that will support everyone in a really healing and nourishing way, right? This is, it sometimes comes across as the manipulation card, but I feel like this is about the ways that you felt manipulated before as leading the way and helping to guide you through new ways of doing conflict resolution, because you're seeing that what you want is important, yes, but if you have what you need, then what's the fight about exactly, right? And understanding the ways that conflict can get twisted up in these different situations. The Hermit, and this is sort of like that that pulling away energy, that pull back to go back, right? And there's so much, it's like the ebb and the flow of water, right? And understanding that the wisdom is in this, understanding and seeing the wisdom in this, and knowing too that it's not a pulling back that isolates you. This is a pulling back that gives you a haven for a moment so that you can collect your thoughts, so that you can then bring that back to others, right? It's almost like it's a process that I feel is so common to artists and creative processes, where we take things that are intangible to us at the moment, and then we go within to these places that allow us to sift through. And even if we don't have the words for it, even if we don't know what it is, we can get into enough of a state where we can let it flow through us, where it just starts to flow through us. And that becomes art. That becomes art. We are able to transcribe the nature of reality into the present moment. And there's something really profound about that right now for you, in terms of this unconscious process and this communication and letting spirit communicate with you. I'm hearing healing smoke because of the smoke rising up. So that could be relevant as well. Clear the air. Page of Cups. I feel like this is like an emotional initiation. Again, this earth and water together, these two things coming together. So we had the Page of Cups and the Queen of Pentacles here, but the Page of Cups is the earth of water in this deck. So it's very interesting to me that this is like the initiation and almost like a portal that you step into, right? That gives you clear seeing, clear sight, clairsentience perhaps. Or that will be a clair that is useful to you through this process. The 4 was just on the time. And then see, there's that Ace of Cups that I was talking about. This is more the denoting of the cup suit, but I see this as like the Ace of Cups that I saw behind the Queen of Swords here. Like behind it, it's almost like that's this portal and initiation that you step into, right? And how it's very interesting to me that there's water elements in both. One is more related to thought processes and perspective, and then the other one is more a grounded emergence thereof. I heard portality. I don't even know if that's a word or not. But I thought of like mortality and then portality in terms of liminality, where the portals that we step into and the people we become and the parts of us that we leave behind at those doorsteps that rise like smoke as we step through them, almost like a mist clearing off of us as we walk through it. Portality. I don't know if that's a word or not. I'm going to have to look it up after this reading. Nine of Wands. That's the smoke. Yeah, that's the smoke that's leaving you, that you're leaving behind. This is like what's burning off as you go through this portal. I feel like you're burning off the instincts that maybe have led you into different ways of communicating or, beliefs about yourself, thought processes. This is like that burning off of things. You step through and it just burns off of you and rises like smoke. That's where I'm getting this from. I feel like this is all happening in the 5D though, so I don't think this is something that you're consciously aware of or that's making itself particularly known to you. I'm hearing that the night energy is going to be a bit of a block for you, not because of people, but because of the movement and knowing how to pace yourself and balance the elements, right? How to balance the elements within you and within the movement forward, not just balancing components. Death, there it is. I got this profoundly. Now, what a statement though, right? I'm just going to hold this up for a second so you can take in the details, given where we are and things happening on the planet. But, it's this regenerative process. What do you want to remember? What parts of you are you, like what parts of you, oh, I just heard going extinct. No. But then there's also this new growth as well. Where is it that I'm thinking of the, how instead of, lawns, I wish that we would plant more wildflowers and plant flowers so that we could make bee gardens and insect gardens because they need our help more than ever. And I'm thinking about the people in your life that might do that for you, that might plant flowers or might have planted flowers or offered them to you in a way that would allow you to get some sustenance and nectar, but that you may not be allowing yourself to really take in. And this could be the part where it's regenerative. So we have to step into and sink into this in a more well-rounded way. But this to me is like the recognition of, this is like the recognition of the process. I almost get that you step through this energetic portal, things burn off, and then you take a look back and this is what's growing from the ashes. This is what's growing from the ashes. Which can, ashes in fires and stuff, it does affect the pH of the soil. So in certain circumstances or instances, it's actually really important because it is, it helps to generate that new growth, right? So, and I feel like this is a fertile time. And as I say it, of course, the Magician came out with the Hierophant. I'll do that so you can see both with great detail. So the Magician and the Hierophant here. So this is a time of creating for you, but this is also I'm hearing a time of deep reverence, a time of deep reverence. Now, I was reading something this morning from this library book that I'm diving into. Susan Cain. She wrote the book Quiet. Now, in it, it talks about something to do with surrender and devotion, and how a lot of times we confuse surrender as being something that's more weak, but it's actually it's like the churning water, right? Where it's devotion, which is such a different energy. So it's like this sort of understanding your power through devotion and softness, as opposed to the hard edges of these sharp swords, right? The sharp swords here, where it was falling apart and becoming something it was becoming dull. The blade was dull, so it couldn't cut deeply, and it shouldn't, but it stopped cutting deeply. But there's so much growth that comes from it, because in the dullness is its strength, right? That's the decomposing log. So then this is where we get that raw power that we have, this raw power. And then we see in the background the full moon here. So this is, I think, something to perhaps release. There's something to release and surrender to. And again, Mercury, not just because of the retrograde, but communication, healing communication. I feel like it's not about manifesting, speaking on things to manifest them. I think that this is about communicating not just what's most important, but what's in your heart space outwards, and understanding that sometimes all it takes is a recognition of that energy to create this really secure, devoted foundation for yourself. Reverence, again, I'm hearing. This is more reverence of the self, I think, and reverence of things outside of you, and recognizing that that energy can exist in a relationship as long as there are no pedestals that go along with it. And as long as there's a recognition that goes with it that you're both in, or multiples if you're polyamorous, that you're in that magician energy. You're in that expansive state. You're in that can do anything state. You have everything that you need in this, and then some. Look at all of the elements here. It's all of the suits represented, but then some. Beneath a shaded tree, you have everything you need. You have everything you need. I don't know who needs to hear that, but you just do. You do. This reading is really long already, but I'm going to add to it because I feel like there's a lot here. So I'm going to read from the Hedge Witches Field Guide. The Hedge Witches Field Guide. This is the Hedge Witches Botanical Oracle. My fantastic fire sign friends, my Leo pals, got this for me. So thank you, Dan and Jerry. Love you both. So I'm going to pull from here for some oracle messages to carry us out of this reading. So this full moon, I think, is not just a time to connect with nature, but I think that this is also helping you to connect with the parts of you that may have seemed disconnected. And this sounds so random, there's a log in you, but it's like I don't know, but it's like there's this place in you that you feel is breaking down or something shifting, but it's actually giving you life. The song Collide by Ed Sheeran just popped into my head, but on the line, bring me to life. But not in necessarily reference to another person, but just the reference to the beat, and the way that the song can be sort of initiating. Interesting. So connection, that's Foxglove. Foxglove. I'll read that to you so that you get an idea here. I haven't used this in a while actually, but that's fine. So Foxglove. Oh my goodness. As you can tell, I haven't used this in so long that I forgot that they put the index at the back. Oh my gosh, did they? What is happening? I'm so sorry, my creative collective. Oh no. There we go. It's alphabetical. Okay, so it's also called witch's gloves, fairy caps, folk glove, and fairy thimbles. And I think it's also important to remember that this is a book that comes from a lot of I guess Celtic knowledge and UK things from the UK, but there's also indigenous terms for these, and there's also an indigenous heritage and use for them. So it's important to, at the outset, just say that while I'm reading from this, there's also indigenous names for this that are not on this card, and it's important to understand and respect that as well. So Foxglove is widely distributed throughout much of the northern hemisphere and is a common wildflower. You will see these tall, stately plants in meadows, along highways, and often in people's flowers beds, where they are cultivated as ornamental garden plants. Honeybees love foxgloves, and in turn, the plant is dependent on bees for pollination. Though used to make important heart medication, this plant is poisonous to humans and other animals. All parts of the plant are toxic, including any water in which the flowers are kept. While poisonous, foxglove also functions as a companion to various other plants that ward off disease and rot within a garden. For example, adding the tea to the water in a vase will keep all of your other cut flowers fresh and blooming for a longer spell. Adding a few foxglove stalks to your cupboard, keep safely in a mesh bag, when storing potatoes or other tubers will increase their storage life and prevent mold and other pests. The name is tied to this plant's association with the Fae, as it is also called folksglove, meaning belonging to the fairy folk. The common name also relates to the tale of these flowers being given by naughty Fae to the fox to silence his steps when hunting, giving the fox an advantage against other forest creatures. Some consider it unlucky to bring foxglove into the home, but grown in the garden, it will keep evil away. It is often mentioned in Irish folklore, for example, to be given in small doses to children thought to be suffering from fairy stroke, or as a charm that can cure wanderlust when worn. Oh my gosh, the oracle property for foxglove is connection. It's longer. I was like, oh no. This quality is inspired by the many folkloric associations that surround this plant and its relationship with magic, fairies, and the unseen realm. It's a wonderful addition to a garden and is valued for its height and lovely color. These flowers also attract pollinators that benefit adjacent plants. Additionally, this is connected not just to the health of other plants, but also to the minerals in the ground. You can often find it proliferating in areas that have iron, tin, or coal deposits. Raw materials. This magical plant is associated with the planet Venus, Libra and Justice, and with the Empress Tarot card, creativity, rebirth, all of that. And also note to 5555 on the time and death, the presence here of that, and also pollinators and remaking things, right? So just keep that in mind as I continue. Remember that much like a garden, connections require care and tending. If you're feeling disconnected, try taking action rather than waiting for things to come to you. Reach out to a friend, find a way to contribute to your community, ask someone out for coffee. At times, we can feel disconnected from some aspect of ourselves, for example, our creativity or sexual selves. Again, these are connections that require work and space to flourish. If our time and focus are turned towards professional advancement or entirely consumed with caring for others, your wholeness as individuals, 10 of Pentacles, that I thought was an 8. Our wholeness as individuals will be compromised. Remember that you are at your best when happy, healthy, relaxed, and fulfilled, and this can only happen when you make time and space for each part of yourself to grow. Definitely. That was a long description. I love it though. But so there's something about, there's something being reinforced here. I feel like that summarized the reading. Like I should have read that first. But I feel as though there's something to do with this aspect of communication that reconnects us. And interesting to me too, that this is also both a regenerative plant, a generative plant, a helping plant, but in the wrong context, it's poisonous. And I feel like that's also true of the death card, where, in the wrong context, something can be literally bring about these sort of deaths, be they ego or otherwise, or some kind of parts of us disconnected. But I think that this is a call to reconnect, and this is kind of showing the way how. This is like showing and outlining the way back. So I'm going to pull from the Life Loves You deck by Robert Holden and Louise Hay. And I'll put the links for these, the decks in the bottom. I trust that life wants the best for me. I trust that life wants the best for me. This is very much the color and motif, as it were, of moss, which is considered one of the most ancient plants on the planet, next to algae. I trust that life wants the best for me. Pay attention to how your life is unfolding. Notice how life doesn't happen to you, how it happens for you. So pay attention to how your life is unfolding. Notice how life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Right? So a little bit of trust, I think, goes a long way here through this process. I think you're gaining wisdom, though, and there is surrender happening. But that is your collective creative unconscious reading, my friends. So if this resonated, please like and subscribe. It helps me to grow the channel. I hope that there's something in here that resonated for you. I do hope so, specifically because so many messages came to me yesterday while I was on the trail to share with others. So I will leave it here though. So if this is where we part, I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or night, wherever this finds you on the time space continuum, my friends. Have a great day.